Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and we're going to be looking at our logarithmic regression rainbow. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So this indicator is something we used while we were pushing 42K not that long ago. And the reason we talked about it is because of this theoretical negative 2.5 log line rule that we've discussed in the past. So the first thing we know is that Bitcoin could ultimately not care about this and trend much higher. But let's just take a look again. So the idea is if we have one peak, so if we have one peak here, let me fix that. So one peak, our second peak, and then our third peak. What we've noted in the past is that each peak has trended down 2.5 log lines from the prior peak. So that one put this one here. And then that one, from that point, trended 2.5 log lines down as well. So half one, half a log line, another one, and then our second log line, so 2.5 to get to this peak. And then what we said was, well, we don't know if this is useful. We don't know if this is ultimately going to govern theoretical tops. However, what we said when we got to 42K was, well, if you go down another 2.5, that's right where we are, basically. That's right where we are. And so one of the things to consider, if this is somewhat, concerning to you, is that two things, right? First of all, Bitcoin does not have to respect this. We've looked at many other indicators that talk about, well, we're not even at our peak regression band, right? If we hide this one and put on our regression bands in terms of our peaks, the green one I'm more confident in is fit to thousands of data points. The upper one, it's only fit to 3 data points. However, even those 3 data points, we have not even reached into that peak regression band, which now ranges from around 55,922 up to 82,405. We have not even reached that at this point. However, when it comes back to the regression rainbow, one thing to keep in mind is that these are in fact monotonically increasing. So it could just be that we come up to this point a couple times, but maybe they're later on in the cycle and the prices of that regression line at that time could be a lot higher. You can see that when we went to this point, we reached around 42K, but the regression line has increased since then. For instance, the top part of the regression line has increased since then from 55K up to around 57K. So we know that it's increasing because they're monotonically increasing functions. However, as we noted, if we were to follow that 2.5 log line rule, which again is somewhat dubious, then we were getting pretty overspent in the short term. Okay, we were getting pretty overspent in the short term. So far, we've come back down to earth a little bit. Obviously, even with that, the price of Bitcoin is still trading today at $31,637. So let's just remain pragmatic about things. As we've said before, this cycle may take longer than prior cycles. And so we need to be prepared for moves like this, right? We need to be prepared for these blasts off into space. And if we do come back down to earth, that's okay. Because ultimately I do expect us to trend higher during the market cycle. One thing that I think is somewhat notable is the fact that our 2019 peak was, or if you take our 2021 peak, it was, or at least local peak so far, it's been 3 times higher. So the one in the summer of 2019 was around 14K. This one was around 42K. So basically Bitcoin did a 3x from this peak to at least this local peak so far. So if it were to do another 3x from this peak during this market cycle, well, 42K, so times 3, so we know 40 times 3 would be 120, so then 42 times 3 would be 126. So that could theoretically put us at around $126,000 if Bitcoin were to do another 3x from this peak at some point later on in the cycle. Now, we always need to maintain being somewhat pragmatic about Bitcoin, because when things get overheated this quickly, we know that it stands to lose some ground. And one of the things that I heard people saying constantly was, institutional investors are going to keep the price of Bitcoin from ever correcting more than 10%. And one of the things we said, this is simply not true. And we've seen that be the case. We've already seen in this correction, we've already seen a 30% correction. Okay, let's hide this from the peak to the bottom. If we go to the peak here, from where we currently are, we're at a 24% correction. But to the bottom of the wick, we already saw a 31% correction. So the idea that institutional money is coming in and will keep it from ever correcting by 30% or something, obviously has been completely disproven, right? This has been completely disproven. The idea that institutional money entering will cause the market to only ever go up without corrections is one of those dangerous mindsets that you can get in that causes people to buy when it's very overextended in the short term. And as we said before, looking at this on a linear scale, which again, obviously somewhat just fulfills the narrative of this, but looking at it on a linear scale, it is a little, you see how quickly things went up. And to look at this and say, well, is it that surprising that it's come back down? It's not surprising in the very least. And I don't even think it would be surprising if it continued on down. Right? I don't think that would be surprising at all. So let's maintain, being somewhat pragmatic about these markets. If you look at our support line, this is our support for a bull market. And again, there's no guarantee that we hold it in the event of a crash. But our support line will change actually here in a little bit as we get in the weekly close. But currently it ranges from 19,386, which is the 20-week SMA, up to 21,849, which is the 21-week EMA. So in the very least in a bull market, you need to be prepared for the downside risk, which is the Bitcoin bull market support line, which still from where we currently are to get to that point, which there's no guarantee that we would need to drop another 31% just to get to the 21-week EMA, or another 40% to get to the 20-week SMA. Of course, by the time if we were to actually drop to those levels, those moving averages will likely be a lot higher. We do know that the 20-week moving average is about to go above $20,000 here in the next few hours. So let's just keep an eye on the markets, okay? The price of Bitcoin so far has reached our 2.5 log line mark that we set, that we talked about earlier on stream. We made some videos on. So to see it come back down and get rejected in the short term, again, predicting short-term moves is very hard. But to see it come back down in the short term, in my opinion, is ultimately a good thing, because we would like it to consolidate for a while before we can ultimately have a more permanent trend upwards. Of course, anytime we're going to be in a bubble, there's going to be this rapid price appreciation, and then it can come back down to earth for a little while. But it's these movements down here that ultimately allow for these types of moves, right? Where we're moving above the 20-week and then going sideways, and then moving back above and then testing the 20-week. We said over here that if Bitcoin can hold the 20-week moving average, sentiment can change on a dime, and it did. So when we come back down to it, whenever we come back down to it, we'll want to try to hold the line to maintain the integrity of the bull market. Hopefully this video has been informative. We'll keep an eye on the price of Bitcoin. Right now it's just under $32,000. Obviously this is not live. You can see the price is just under $32,000. So we're about $10,000 off of the all-time high. A pretty significant drop off the prior all-time high. So we'll go into 2021 with an open mind. We'll see where the price of Bitcoin takes us. And also we'll see if eventually if it can get above this 2.5 log line rule, or if it does govern our global tops for this market cycle. If you guys like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel. Let's go for 100,000 subscribers. We're almost there. Thank you guys for subscribing. Give the video a thumbs up. We also have the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. And finally, there is the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. You'll get access to weekly reports, weekly videos, a risk dashboard, which is what I use to trade, a Telegram alerts channel, a Telegram chat room, premium only live streams. We've had a couple of those now. They're pretty chill. It's not like the public live streams where everything gets a bit crazy. We have a whole lot more. Make sure you guys check it out, intothecryptoverse.com. And if you want the lifetime deal, that one will be going up in about 1 week. So if you want to get that before that price goes up, make sure you check out the lifetime deal, which you can find a link to in the description below. That'll wrap it up. Make sure you guys subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.